Remember we were going to have like underline or something. Hello, I'm Carol A. Clark, publisher of the Los Alamos Daily Post, and we're excited to bring you the first candidates forum of this election season. Today we have with us the 6 candidates for county council. They are running unopposed in the primary election coming up next month. There are 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats vying for 3 vacant seats that will be available after the end of the year. We will start the introductions with Ken Johnson, and then we have Roger Waterman, Pete Sheehey, Marc Clay, Vincent Chiravalle, who is our sole incumbent, and we have Kristin Henderson. So welcome to you all, and thank you for being a part of this forum.
Thank you for having me.
And joining me on the panel we have Stan Primak, who is a green builder in town, and he is also on the board of the Los Alamos Commerce and Development Corporation, as well as the board of the Los Alamos Chamber of Commerce. And we have Greg Kendall, who is a columnist and reporter, as well as webmaster for the Los Alamos Daily Post. So we will begin this evening's forum with each candidate giving 2 minutes for their opening remarks. And we'll begin with Ken Johnson, who is a Democrat.
Thank you very much for inviting us. So I thought I would share some life experiences that I think prepare me for this. One is, I've counted up, I've lived in Los Alamos 47 years, starting as a child when it was a closed city. I've come and gone numerous times. But what I think it gives me is a corporate knowledge of this place that's rather unique. And I can remember the way it was, which I think is better than the way it is. And I'm hoping we can make the future better. Other things that I think are relevant is I'm trained as a physicist, but in recent years I'm more of a manager at the laboratory. I also have management experience in the public sector at 2 terms on the school board. So I understand a lot of the rules and regulations that govern open meetings. And the last thing I sort of want to say, I did want to say actually something else that's important to me. I'm also engaged in the community in other ways. I was a volunteer tennis coach, 3 years at the middle school, 2 years at the high school. For more than 20 years, have taught math. Former student is over here at UNMLA. And I think that's my commitment to the public. And then the last thing is a little-known fact about myself. While I'm not a businessman, I actually have an MBA from the Anderson School of Business at UNM, which I acquired in the middle 90s. And I think I'll wrap it up.
And let me say that we are coming to you live from the PAC 8 television studio in downtown Los Alamos. And I forgot to mention that representing the youth of our community, we have Michelle Sutton, who is the daughter of Gillian and David Sutton, who own KRSN Radio, and she is our timekeeper this evening, and she will keep the candidates to adhere to their 2 minutes for opening remarks, 3 minutes for questions. So now we will go to Roger Waterman for his opening remarks, and Roger is a Republican.
Thank you for having us. My name is Roger Waterman. Inasmuch as most of the voters are younger than I am, I should introduce myself. My family came to Los Alamos in 1947. My dad was a security guard for the AEC, and I graduated from Los Alamos High School in 1965 and from Dartmouth with a government degree in 1969. I've served on lots of boards and commissions in Los Alamos. I've lived here most of my life. I came back up to help my father manage the local businesses in 1975. One of the truisms my father shared with me is that I won't use his vernacular, but I wouldn't know anything until I was 40. I had 3 terms on the council. And most of what I learned until I was 40 was probably during that experience. I found it exciting and challenging, and as a small town developer, who has suffered, as many have, through a recession that's lasted longer than any of us would want. I have more time, and my brain needs the action. So I would like to have the opportunity to serve the community once again, and hopefully I've learned enough through my mistakes and my successes to be a contribution. Thanks.
Thank you, Roger. And our next candidate is Pete Sheehey, and he is a Democrat.
I'm Pete Sheehey, running for Los Alamos County Council. I've lived and worked here for 25 years, and Los Alamos has been a good home for me. I care about this community, and I think we can make it better. That's why I've long been active on issues at all levels of government. In my service since 2008 as Vice Chairman of the County Planning and Zoning Commission, I think I've shown the judgment, patience, stamina, and good humor necessary to make a good county councilor for this town. There are two things the county council needs more focus on: communication and prioritization. Communication means listening to people and telling people honestly and clearly what our issues and choices are. Prioritization means making hard choices. We need good information to make good choices. My priorities for county government are public safety, basic infrastructure, and education, followed by careful investment to help grow the local economy. If we manage these things well, then we'll be able to afford the amenities that make for a nicer town. We need to go ahead now with the projects that are most important, but we'll have to wait on some because our budget won't cover everything. That's what priorities are about. Los Alamos County government spends a great deal of taxpayers' money every year. We need to make sure that money goes where it'll do the most good. Tax revenues spent wisely on infrastructure, education, and economic development are good investments for Los Alamos and will pay off for all of us in the long run. But we need to be totally honest with the people about the costs and benefits, and we must earn their trust if we expect taxpayers to support such investments. I ask for your support. Take a look at my website, PeteSheehey.com, where you can see some of my ideas and record, and send me your ideas. I'm eager to discuss what I could do as a county councilor to help make this a better community. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. And our next candidate for opening remarks is Marc Clay, and Marc is a Republican.
Hi, my name is Marc Clay. I was a student of Ken. He taught me what the word pedagogical meant, and everybody in the class wondered what that meant, but now I know it means for teaching purposes, so thank you for sharing that with me, Ken, all those years ago. I think Los Alamos is a great place to live today, and I want to serve on the council to help shape and improve the community for tomorrow. I'm inspired when people with a positive attitude, enthusiasm, and commitment have the desire to work together to achieve common goals. I want to work with the county council and the outstanding county staff and the community to create and maintain such an energized environment with the objective of transforming energy, passion, and innovative thoughts and ideas into tangible results. That's what I'm all about. I want to help Los Alamos move forward, to add vitality to the community and to community programs. I want to enable vibrant, cost-conscious economic development and improved infrastructure, and make people want to be here, want people to be happy here and be excited to be here in Los Alamos. I am committed to soliciting and incorporating the needs and desires of all the members of our community, and I want to help increase affordable housing, which we'll talk about tonight. I want to help grow our community. I want to build lasting coalitions. Those are the things that I'm all about. I'm a resident of Los Alamos for over 30 years, since 1983. I've lived 20 years in White Rock, 10 years in Los Alamos. I've been, by education and training, preparing myself for this position through Leadership Los Alamos, also through Leadership New Mexico. I serve on the board of directors for Leadership Los Alamos and the Power Reader Chaplain Service. I've been very engaged in the community through various programs, from high school basketball coach to Yaffle football coach. So I'm very engaged in helping our youth and try to bring them along on the ride with us, because we have to incorporate their ideas as well. So thank you for the time and listening to me. I look for your support, and I guess I'll pass it on to Vincent.
Thank you, Marc. Vincent Chiravalle is up next. He is, as I said, is the sole incumbent on the panel here with the candidates, and he also is a Republican.
I'd like to take a moment to thank the Daily Post and PAC for sponsoring this forum. I moved to Los Alamos in 2003 to take a technical staff position at the laboratory, and I've lived here, and I own a home on the North Mesa. In 2008, I was humbled and honored to be elected to serve on the County Council for a 4-year term. During my 4-year term, I have consistently voted against excessive public spending, and I've worked tirelessly to control the growth of our county government and to make sure that we live within our means. My approach to local government is one that emphasizes principles above politics. I am decisive and articulate in the positions that I advocate for. I'm comfortable, on occasion, being in the minority position on the council, when the minority position is the right position for our working people, families, and our small businesses. I take pride in being an independent thinker and a common-sense fiscal conservative. I have always championed issues that favor working people, and I will always put the needs of our working people and our families ahead of special interests. During my tenure on the council, I've worked hard and taken a leading role in developing public policy, while always staying loyal to the principles on which I ran 4 years ago. Our county faces a number of unresolved issues. Large GRT revenue from Lanel is not guaranteed in the future. We must prioritize in our capital investments, and I believe that our public schools are the jewel of our community. And I would like to see us undertake more commercial development, such as the Trinity site development with the new marketplace store, so that our schools can benefit by having more lease revenue that they can use for operating expenses. And this is why I'm seeking another term as county councilor. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. And finally, we have Kristin Henderson. She is, of course, a Democrat. Kristin?
Hi. Thank you for having me and for having this panel today. I'm going to introduce myself a little bit because this is the first time I've run for office in town. So I've lived here 9 years. My name is Kristin Henderson. I'm running for county council. I'm married to a scientist at the lab. That's why we're here. We've been here about 9 years. We have 2 little girls, and they are in elementary school, and we go to the Catholic Church. So that's some information about me. On a professional level, I have a law degree from UCLA. I have an undergraduate degree from a school in California called Claremont McKenna. It was in philosophy, which, of course, focuses on analytical reasoning. I worked in business law, both in Denver and in Los Angeles, before coming here. And I also actually worked in software, where I worked with a really diverse group of people who had very different interests, and I had to bring them together to create something that worked for everyone that turned out to be some great software. Here, for the last 6 years, I've had my own business. I work at RE/MAX as a real estate agent, and so I know what it's like to have a business here in town and to work in business here. I've also been a stay-at-home mom here, and I absolutely have that perspective. I've decided to run for council because I feel, after having watched the county council closely, I was also involved as a volunteer on the Trinity site project, and that got me talking to a lot of people closely about what their goals and dreams are for this town, and there's a lot of people who feel fairly unrepresented. And mostly those are people who would like some progress, and a lot of those people are families, and that's absolutely what I would like to help bring that voice to council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristin. Now we'll get right to the questions. Each candidate will be asked the same question, and they will have 3 minutes each for their answers. And we will begin with Greg Kendall asking the first question.
Right. The first question goes to Ken Johnson, and they'll all receive the same question. The question is, given that the county government is facing a decrease in gross receipt taxes due to a decrease in spending at Los Alamos National Laboratory, which may become worse in future years, and given that we have more than $100 million in Phase 2 unfunded capital improvement projects, how would you suggest Los Alamos County fund those citizen-proposed projects?
So, a fact of life is we live in a one-company town, and we are We rise and fall as the economic situation of that company varies. And so we will always be in this position. So in the short term, the best that we can do, I believe, is, as Pete said, we have to set priorities of what, and consensus on that, on what we can accomplish in the near term. For the long term, there are a variety of things. One would be the success of the Trinity site. My optimism on that has diminished over the years since the Boyer proposition, I thought, was quite dynamic for the town, and it's deteriorated greatly. As you can see, the lease money that would go to the schools from $1 million to $500,000. But nonetheless, that is a keystone to everything. In addition, I would like Los Alamos to become a tourist destination as opposed to an afternoon excursion from Santa Fe. And I think that would bring a lot of economic development. And the town has, one of the great things is the infrastructure that is appearing, such as the shuttle buses. This is a plus that would be an appeal to tourists. The Manhattan project becoming a national park, many sites, that moves ever so slowly forward. Science Museum has potential. Outdoor activities are endless. Skiing in the winter, aquatic center, hikes, Bandelier nearby. Development for White Rock would be important in that because they're the gateway to Bandelier, more so than Los Alamos. And then really long term, I don't know how strong a role the county can play in this, but developing UNMLA into a 4-year institution, which has happened to the school in Espanola. And this would be another driving force, because if you look beyond the lab, the two other largest employers in the town is the county and the schools, and they don't generate gross receipts tax. Thank you.
And now I've got the same question for Roger Waterman. I'm going to repeat the question. Given that the county government is facing a decrease in gross receipt taxes due to a decrease in spending at Los Alamos National Laboratory, which may become worse in future years, and given that we have over $100 million in Phase 2 unfunded capital improvement projects, how would you suggest that Los Alamos County fund those citizen proposed projects?
Thank you. I was on the council in the 80s. And the budget was from $4 to $6 million. We couldn't provide basic services without federal government support, and capital projects wasn't even a line item on our budget. But the provision of basic public services is still the most important function that the council provides. But there are similarities between the situation now and the situation back then. When New Mexico settled the gross receipts tax suit and went to the Supreme Court, it resulted in a $9 million payment to Los Alamos County. We were not in a position to have a use for $9 million, and we asked the community to pass a charter amendment to put it into a permanent self-sufficiency fund. That fund is still in place and has grown to $20 million, and the interest is still available for use for capital projects. I believe, and also on similar issues, the windfall came in as a gross receipts tax. And interestingly enough, the first major capital project that the county took on was the construction of the pool. Wally Walters happened to be the head of the Recreation Board, and he was the only one who had sufficient public support built for an immediate need, that the council took on the project, issued GRT bonds, and paid off the pool in 18 months. Unfortunately, someone made the decision to put a blue roof on the pool, and we solved that with a U-square and a green roof. The council, I think, made the right decision 2 weeks ago during the budget hearings to go back to the capital improvements budget, rescope, reprogram, and take another look at the priorities. I think the council had programming issues with the Justice Center and with the Airport Basin project. I don't think they had adequate personnel to oversee projects of that size because they hadn't been done here for quite some time. But I think the oversight issues have been solved with incompetent personnel, but I don't think the scoping and programming issues have been resolved as yet. This generally in business and in government results in a missed budget and at sometimes design mistakes. I think the existing funds need to be used to undertake projects on an orderly basis, but that the projects need to be another look needs to be taken at the projects in terms of need, size, and budget. Thanks.
And now we'll move on to Pete Sheehey, and I'm going to repeat the question just in case you just joined us. The question is, given that the county government is facing a decrease in gross receipt taxes due to a decrease in spending at Los Alamos National Laboratory, which may become worse in future years, and given that we have more than $100 million in Phase 2 unfunded capital improvement projects, how would you suggest Los Alamos County fund those citizen-proposed projects?
First, the entire list of proposed capital improvement projects need to be reevaluated and reprioritized because the present projects and priorities were formulated upon a false premise that the county could look forward to ever-increasing GRT revenues. Staff and the community need to re-examine each and every proposal and break them down into more or less urgently needed parts that might be partially funded or phased in over time. Second, the county government needs to take a major initiative similar to what the county schools did recently. When the schools saw budgets getting tight, they enlisted the community in a comprehensive review of where we need to spend our education money first and where we can economize. This paid off for the schools not only in the savings they were able to realize, but with the voters of this county who continue to support education when they see administrators and teachers all making good efforts to make the tax dollars go as far as possible. The county staff, with participation from the council and the community, need to look at all county operations and projects and determine the most important and the least important and where we can do things more efficiently. By doing this, we'll build a broad consensus on what to do when hard budgetary decisions have to be made. Third, we should look at alternative funding for some projects. When federal or state programs offer matching funds, that can help stretch our limited county dollars. Some projects, like the Trinity site development, will bring substantial private investment to our town. In some projects like community broadband, we should investigate if voluntary participation might be possible, with an assessment to be paid by each household that wants to participate. Last, we could ask the voters to approve a property or other tax increase to pay for specific projects that have broad support. I'm ready to campaign for projects that I see as truly important to our future, but I respect the will of the voters on any tax proposal. It's pretty clear right now that unless county government has thoroughly exhausted all other avenues to pay for something and done the previous things I've suggested, there's very little chance of voters approving a tax increase for new capital improvement projects.
Thank you. And now we're going on to Marc Clay, and I'll repeat the question. Given that the county government is facing a decrease in gross receipts taxes due to a decrease in spending at the Los Alamos National Laboratory, which may become worse in future years, and given that we have more than $100 million in Phase 2 unfunded capital improvement projects, how would you suggest Los Alamos County fund those citizen-proposed projects?
I think the first thing is each of those projects received a good deal of public input. And I think you need to consider the public input individually, but then I think the county needs to take a look at how they react with each other collectively. So each person has their own need for the individual project. I think we need to consider the collective need of them and then balance which one will serve the best needs of the community, not just today, but also looking into the future a bit. We have to consider the economic vitality and the growth. Some projects lend themselves better to that more than others. I think that those kind of issues need to be laid in front of the community so they can make informed decisions about that, and then we can take that input and then in turn make decisions that represent their wishes. I know that in the case of the ice rink, that particular project has been maybe maybe better broken down into individual pieces than some of the others. I mean, the ice rink project says we're going to work on the parking, we're going to work on a roof, those kind of things. Some of the other projects have rather large scale built into them collectively. Maybe they can be reviewed to see which aspects need to be done first. I know on a building you can't only build half the building, but those are the kind of things that need to be considered. Take a look at that collectively, get the input, consider the balance of today versus the future about where the community is going. Those are some things that I would take a look at. I do know that the GRT will be decreasing, and given the budget concerns from Washington, it's possible that may continue. So we need to make sure that whatever we decide to do, we nail down the budget a little closer than we are. I mean, one of the projects said, the budget's between $2 and $5 million. Probably not good enough of a tightened window for me to feel comfortable saying go ahead with that one. So some of the budgets need to be firmed up, and today's dollars a little bit clearer. We need to consider the availability of funding in the future to keep the projects going. As Roger said, some things happen where maybe we didn't have enough money up front to get it done correctly right off the bat because of management. Those are things that we need to consider. But I'd say in summation, we would really want to make sure that we had a collective input from the community, not just focus on any individual project. We want to make sure that scope is narrowed down to where they're actually doable with the amount of money that we have, considering how much money we may have available in the future. And then I think we want to move forward with them and what makes sense, considering the future needs of the community as well as what we want today. So that's how I would tackle that.
Okay, I'll read the question only 2 more times. This one is for Vincent Chiravalle. Same question. Given that the county government is facing a decrease in gross receipts taxes due to a decrease in spending at Los Alamos National Laboratory, which may become worse in future years, and given that we have more than $100 million in Phase 2 unfunded capital improvement projects, how would you suggest that Los Alamos County fund those citizen proposed projects?
Government has a responsibility to make investments in infrastructure and maintain infrastructure and make investments to help grow and sustain the vitality of the community. But when we make our investments, we have to differentiate between what is a critical need for the community and what is a luxury item. And in looking at our capital projects program, I think we have to emphasize the basic needs first. I am not of the opinion that we should raise taxes, either property taxes or GRT taxes, to meet the $100 million approximately shortfall that we have in our CIP funding projection. If it's one message that I've heard very clearly from voters and residents in the community, is that people are frustrated with the pace of spending and the rate at which we are committing county resources for capital projects. People feel that large government buildings do not equate with progress and with growth. And for this reason, I would not dismiss a citizen's petition that was brought before the council to amend the charter so citizens could vote on the large projects. I think this is the best way to prioritize, having the citizens vote on the large projects. And I would not dismiss it even though there was a legal controversy regarding the issue. The best course is to move forward and allow and do what our charter says, have an election on the proposed charter amendment. As far as paying for the projects that are in our capital program right now, I think we should take our time, listen to the voters, slow down the pace, accumulate the resources that we have, cash resources in the county, and conduct the capital program at a slower pace and paying for it without raising GRT taxes or property taxes. Thank you.
And finally, we've got Kristin Henderson, and I'll read it one more time. Given that the county government is facing a decrease in gross receipt taxes due to a decrease in spending at Los Alamos National Laboratory, which may become worse in future years, and given that we have more than $100 million in Phase 2 unfunded capital improvement projects, how would you suggest Los Alamos County fund these citizen proposed projects?
Well, it is interesting that we do have over $100 million of projects that we are thinking of that are kind of in the hopper and that have been vetted in some way. I'm actually in agreement with what the current council has done, which is they have decided not to raise taxes to try to pay for some of those, but instead to both prioritize what's on that list and see if any of them can be scaled down, and I think that's a good idea. I would say a bigger concern for me is I agree with the council, the councilor candidates who are all saying we need to prioritize these. And the question I would want to bring up is prioritize along what lines? And I think we need to have a vision for our town, a vision for what we want it to be and who we want it to serve and who is going to be happy here. And we need to have all of our segments of our population represented, all of them represented. Any councilor that is elected at large, and they need to be representing all of the town, and they need to think of the vision of the whole town and what it can look like and what it can be. I personally am not positive that the current items that are being considered would have been at the top of the list, but I also think the town is fairly frustrated that, as it seems to me, every 2 years when different people switch on to the council, everything gets scuttled and we start all over again, and I don't believe that that's right. I think we need to prioritize the ones that have been vetted and move forward with them, and in the meantime, develop a process that does incorporate all of the values of the town and a vision of the town, so that as we move forward, we do find the right prioritization for spending the money that either we do have or we would be getting in the future, should we be so fortunate again to have any, and we build the right kind of town for us. I actually see on a unfortunately fairly regular basis in real estate the families who come here and who want to take the job at the lab and choose not to live here. And I'm not of the opinion that not having amenities is a feature in town. I think we need to have amenities in town for all segments of our population, and that includes the families. And with the kind of government we have, it's very difficult for families to be involved, and I know everybody is busy, but in fact families are exceptionally more busy, and it's more difficult for them to get to county council meetings and get their opinions heard, but we need to develop the right kinds of processes where their voices are heard too. And I have to, unfortunately, make a comment about some of the ideas that we generally put everything out to a vote. I am not in favor of that. I truly believe in a representative government. We have it for a reason. And I think as a town and any community deserves the most important decisions to have very well thought out decision makers thinking of them. I mean, the decisions to be well thought out. They need to think about them. We have complicated issues. We have limited land. We have a lot of different interests. We need to have these issues thought through thoroughly with a vision for what the town should be. And I don't think it should be just ad hoc thrown out there. I really think they all deserve well thought out decision making. Thank you.
Now for our second question, we will go ahead and have Stan Primak ask the candidates.
And we're going to start at the other end. So, Kristin, you're first.
Okay.
One of the four major goals in the county's economic vitality strategic plan is to increase the availability of housing in the community. That is both affordable and market rate. If you were elected councilor, what specific steps would you take to achieve this goal?
This question is right up my alley because I have been dealing with real estate on a very regular basis for, 6 years plus now. There's a couple of things. One is we do have land that the county has that's been given to them by the DOE, and there's a couple things we need to do. One is I think some of that can be used for affordable housing, and the way you can get affordable housing, because I would prefer it be built by private investors. There does have to be some investment from the county along the lines of building the infrastructure to those sites. And I would support that because I do think to have a vibrant community, we do need all economic bases covered. And it's a far cry to say we don't have enough affordable housing. That's certainly an understatement. So that's one thing. The other thing is there are the other lots that are available. And I do think one thing we need to do is make sure that they're zoned correctly. Make sure they're zoned to provide the best use of that land. There is such a thing as the best use of certain types of land, and I think we need to make sure of that. Some really specific things that I think of on a regular basis, we do have some housing along our canyon, along Trinity site that are great for downsizing. They're still lovely, they're still nice, they have a canyon view, but you don't have to take care of a yard. that housing is so hard to come by. And I think there's a lot of people in town that are empty nesters at this point that would frankly like to downsize, but there's no way they're leaving town. We have a lot of people who mostly want to stay here, which is great. So I think some of that land downtown, especially if it has views, should be used for that kind of a thing. And if it can be zoned that way and sold off to developers that way and privately built, I think it's going to free up a lot of housing in other parts of town when people can move over there. I actually also think there's something else that I've noticed, which is that we have an oddly large amount of houses that are vacant. And I don't know if you've seen that in your neighborhood, but I see it a lot. And I don't know if the number's 5 or 50. But I think it would be interesting to look into whether we could have some kind of public-private consortium where the homeowners still own it. In most cases, they're certainly out of town, often out of state. But we have a private person come in, a private entity who's willing to invest in that house, put a new roof on, put some flooring in, make it livable. And then, because it's a group with the government, the county can organize helping to pick the deserving tenants that need to be there. You know, our teachers or our other folks who are having a hard time getting a place to live up here, and that lasts for 2 or 3 years. And whenever the seller and the investor decide to sell, they can sell, and the investor gets some return on their money at that point. I think that could help everybody. It helps revitalize that housing. It's excellent reuse and recycle. We're landlocked. We don't have that many places we can put housing. That helps us use the houses that are here that are not in use. And it certainly helps the homeowners. I mean, they're not my biggest concern when they're not living here, but it is my concern to help people to get into town and also to reinvigorate our communities where those houses are sitting and pretty much rotting. So, thank you.
Vincent, I won't repeat the question unless you would like me to.
No, that's fine. I feel we have to move forward aggressively with the private development of the A19 60-acre parcel in White Rock. And by moving forward, we can help ensure that new housing and retail options can be created through private enterprise. The county has undertaken a number of projects in White Rock, including a new road project on State Road 4, visitor center, civic center, and there are needs that these projects can meet. However, having new large government buildings is going to do very little to addressing the critical need for affordable housing and attracting more young families to come into our community to live here. Approximately half of the workforce, countywide workforce, commutes each day into Los Alamos, and we have to do something to incentivize them to come and stay here. And the big component, the big piece of that is affordable housing, new housing, attractive housing. And looking at our past, at the Pinion Trails development in White Rock, I think this can be a good model for a development on A19. And that development would encompass a number of elements. There could be an affordable housing component, which would be a certain percentage of it. There could be housing that would be sold competitively on the market. And thirdly, I think we need to have a component for rental housing. I think this is very critical. If it's the one thing that we've neglected in the past, it's new rental units. So I'd like to see us move forward with the development. And what the county needs to do is to develop a plan for how A19, a master plan for how A19 is going to be developed, and then move forward with that and begin to solicit private investment for the different parcels of that land. And the county would put in the spine infrastructure. So the White Rock is where I see the immediate opportunity. There are other opportunities also on the hill. The A8 site, which is adjacent to the Trinity site, could also be used for housing. But the key word for me is private investment. The county should not be a housing developer. It should not be a renter. It should be a facilitator to help bring in private developers who are going to build these properties and give us the kind of new affordable housing that will attract people who live in Santa Fe and work in Los Alamos. We want those people to live here in Los Alamos so their dollars will stay locally. And I think we have some opportunities in the future to be able to do that, and I want us to move aggressively on those opportunities. Thank you.
Marc Clay is next. Would you like me to repeat the question?
I got it down.
Affordable housing obviously helps contribute to the diversity of the community and helps foster a lot of what we are trying to accomplish through vitality. So I think it's important for the county to help foster an environment to create affordable housing opportunities. The question was, what would I do if I were on the council? And the first thing I would probably consider doing with my council members was, let's form some sort of affordable housing review team to take a look at the lessons learned that we've received from past efforts that the county have executed in housing, affordable housing, which I know, like you, Stan, have been involved in that process for a while, and others have as well. What have we learned from that? I think that review team could then compare that with some benchmarking, additional benchmarking of other communities that are similar to Los Alamos. I mean, Los Alamos is unique, but it's not the only place exactly like it is. So we would take a look, and those other communities would have similar populations, landlocked, those kind of things. We would look at those kind of things to then develop some recommendations that we could help as a county council in attracting and providing maybe incentives through the county, some kind of incentive program that we could attract developers and bankers and private sector people to invest in the community, and then figure out what the best ways are to do that. So I think that review team working on a relatively short time frame, it can't be 3 years. It can't be. It's got to be a time that's actually going to be helpful for the community in the near term, because we're doing a lot of things at the same time. Affordable housing being one of them. We're trying to revitalize the community. We're trying to get the Trinity Project going. We're trying to do a lot of things. So it needs to be done in parallel, as opposed to serially. So, and it needs to be thought about now, because if we don't, it's going to sort of sit on the wayside, and then we're going to continue with other things, and we'll still be talking about the same thing in 2 years. So, those are things I would do. Would be, again, in summary, have an affordable housing review team to look at the lessons learned from our past efforts, compare it with benchmarks in other communities that are similar to ours, come with some recommendations that we can offer incentives, and then start to be able to attract those developers and those bankers to come here and help with those things, and including ownership and rental, high density, low density, all those options for affordable housing, that we could take a look at those things.
Thank you. Next is Pete Sheehey.
Thank you. The county and schools have land that should be used in public-private cooperative developments for affordable housing, as we successfully did with the Pinion Trails development in White Rock. The county should be more aggressive in working with groups like Habitat for Humanity, which Stan's worked with. I know of some lots that would be ideal for affordable housing, which we have to work out some of the legalities of public-private partnerships, but that can be done. There's a need. There's a lot of people who would like to work here, and the more people who live up here, the better it is for small business, for retail as well. I'm particularly excited about mixed-use live/work development, which will also help small business develop. If you can pay a single mortgage for both your office or your workshop and your home, potentially you can make it with a little less income, get a small business going. Revitalizing our White Rock and Los Alamos downtown areas and reinvigorating the local retail should encourage more people who are commuting to Los Alamos to want to live here. This should invite market rate housing development as well. I live in the Broadview tract on North Mesa, which is one of the last market rate starter home developments done. Since then, more expensive houses have been the trend. We should encourage development of starter homes, which represent less financial risk to both homeowners and developers. There are some state and federal programs. I used one when I got my first house here that will help people get into their first home. We should promote this.
Thank you. And next is Roger Waterman.
Thanks. I think A19 presents an example of probably how not to promote a housing project by a public entity. Los Alamos needs to go back to the county affordable housing plan that the county council accepted in 2010. But the A19 project represented two viable proposals. One was accepted and turned down after negotiation failed, and the other was accepted and turned down after negotiation failed. Both of those projects represented a misrepresentation of what the county wanted to the developers, and it represented a non-economic negotiation. So if the county wants a ground used for affordable housing, it needs to make that decision up front as part of its housing plan. The other mistake that the county makes is they don't do their own research on their ground before it is put to a private developer. A19 is a perfect example. A19 is filled with granite, and the infrastructure is going to be extremely expensive. The private developer suspects that. The county doesn't research that. It increases the risk and lowers the price. The other mistake the county makes is they get an appraisal before they decide what the conditions of bid are going to be. When you do that, you look for the highest and best use, and under state law, that county has to get 95% of that appraisal. And when you put affordable housing on a highest and best use appraisal, it doesn't work economically, and the county can't sell it. So there are examples of successes. Pinion Hills was a success where the schools provided some affordable housing that was quickly scooped up, but the market rate housing failed. So I think we need to learn from these mistakes. The first thing I think we need to do is go back to the affordable housing plan the county accepted in 2010. And the first priority, I think, in that plan is to create our own housing authority. The most successful housing program probably in the country is the Section 8 voucher program. The Section 8 voucher program is currently managed by the Northern Regional Housing Authority out of Santa Fe. And because of budget constraints, 30 seconds, oh wow. Let's see. I think what we ought to concentrate on is establishing a local voucher program which puts employers in cooperation with the county and landlords to participate in creating our own voucher program, and that could be done with a local housing authority. The Mortgage Finance Authority has a wide variety of programs that would be helpful to Los Alamos, but you have to have your own local housing authority to take advantage of those programs. Thanks.
Thank you. And finally, we have Ken Johnson.
Okay, at this point, it's hard to think of anything that hasn't been said. Disadvantage of being last. So I would like to remind people that the Trinity site, when the Boyer Company had mixed use intended, and A8 had a combination of affordable housings, apartments, and homes. And that's how I would like to see the downtown work, and that was a site. But that currently is not the plan, but nonetheless it is extremely needed. You know, the workforce that would, say, work in a successful Trinity site are not going to be high-income positions. They're not likely to be able to live in Los Alamos, and given the rising price of gas, we may not even have a workforce because of the cost of a commute. Right? So it is critical, which is the obvious thing to everybody. And, you know, the affordable housing, not to offend anybody that we sort of have in town, is the Denver Steels, who I would remind you were temporary housing 60 years ago. You know, we have not done a good job of providing the needs with respect to housing of our community, and it's important to move forward on that.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll take a brief pause. We'll come back with our final question.